Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Mike, and I'm going to start today by walking us through some of the basics that we need to get started with Salon Iris. And perhaps some of you have already been taking advantage of our program and need a refresher. So this is also going to help remind you on how to do some things as well. I am going to review how to set up employees, how to add employee schedules, services and products along with clients. And then we'll move over into the appointment book and elaborate on appointment scheduling, making alterations to appointments, how do we do discounts, and just some different crafty things that you could do with the actual appointment book. So just to get started, up here at the top is what we have, or is called our navigation bar. We are going to start with employees. When we actually click on employees, it's going to highlight everybody that's actually already in your system. In addition to that, if you have a new employee, you can click the plus sign in the bottom right-hand corner. Outside of that, if you needed to make an edit to an existing employee, we could click on David or John, for instance. In this case, because we already have employees, why don't we click on one of the existing that we have in here and go through the steps. This would be the exact steps that you would follow if you were going to be adding a new employee. So once I click on David, obviously you're going to see the information that is in front of us and is provided. Feel free to fill in as much detail as you feel as necessary. The role section here may become useful to you later on when you are actually utilizing the appointment book, as this will be a good time to organize your employees by what role they play in the business, if they are an esthetician or a stylist, or if they only are a receptionist, so that you can filter down your appointment book. From there, we would move over to employee setup, in which this is actually where you can configure some additional settings in addition to their cloud account, which email address they would actually be utilizing to log in with. And then from there, if you would like them to receive appointment notifications, such as an appointment scheduled text, an appointment change text, or an appointment canceled text message, or email, or both. In addition, you also have your booth renter settings here as well. If you have independent contractors, you can most certainly tag them here so that it'll keep the business totals separate from their own. In addition to that, if somebody was no longer going to be working there, you could, of course, mark them inactive and remove them from the appointment book. Now, this is also a good example for a receptionist, as typically you don't necessarily need to see a receptionist on the appointment book. So they most certainly might work at the business and you need them to clock in and out. However, you don't need them to appear on the appointment book. This will most definitely give you the ability to make sure that you're only viewing what you need to. And last, we have service limitations. So if we tag yes here, as you see, here's the, essentially the categories that I have in the software here. And from here, if David, for instance, could only perform barber services, I could tag the barber services box, or I can also select the drop down and I could even be more specific than that if necessary. So in this case, I'm just going to flip this switch to off, as he can perform all services. And then last but not least, we have the portfolio. So from here, what you can also do is, my apologies there, is we could add a picture on here. So if your employee has a picture that you would like them to put in the account, you can most certainly do that, and you can also upload that from a mobile device. Once we go over the employee section here, we typically need to move forward with the scheduling screen. So of course we don't see the schedule over on the navigation bar. However, if we click the more button here, this is where all the additional options are going to appear. If we move down and we select schedule from here, this is where you can provide their availability for the appointment book. The reason this is so important is this is going to also give you the bandwidth if you would like to utilize online booking, so that your stylist can then book an appointment online, or me as the customer could go in and book an appointment online and be able to schedule based on the availability that you've selected for their schedule here. So for instance, for John, if I actually click on Sunday, and let's say that John actually is not going to be available on Sunday. So if I click on that day, from there, I can actually click no, that it's not a working day. And then I can also select a Y. So with the Y, perhaps it's just an off day or it's a vacation day. I can then simply click schedule. However, if he is off every Sunday, I could actually click repeat. And this could just be for Sundays, or we could also do maybe it's Sundays and Mondays that he is not going to be working. So if that was the case, I select both the days that he's not going to be working, and then we go end on, and then we select the day, how far out we would like to make sure that this goes. So in this case, he's not going to work, for the rest of the year, perhaps on Sundays and Mondays. So I selected January 1st of 2021. If I select schedule from here, now it's going to set those days as off days. And then that's going to be, moving forward as well. So now you can see, jumping forward in the weeks, you're going to see that that's applied to all Sundays and Mondays. And that's also what you can do for employees that have altered schedules for particular days, because of course, most people are not 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, 5 days a week. As we all know, everybody has different schedules. So perhaps David on Tuesdays and Thursdays is actually only going to be working, 10 to 3. So if that was the case, again, just to reiterate, we're going to click on the day, such as Tuesday. We are going to highlight to repeat this. And then, in this case, I said it was going to be 10. So we're going to type in 10 a.m. This is then going to be altered over to 3 o'clock. And then in addition to that, I said that was going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then we can go and again, make this end perhaps at the end of the year. So I'm just going to, move forward here to perhaps January 1st, and we're going to go schedule. So now that is scheduled, between David and John. So John's off on Sundays and Mondays, and David is now set in stone for 10 to 3s on Tuesdays and Thursdays. All right. So once we have our schedules in play for our employees, the next thing that we typically have to run through is, do we have services? So if we move over to services, because obviously we need something to book for. So once we click on our services here, obviously I have quite a few services already added into the system. And if we click the plus sign down here, this would be where we would go to create a new service. Now what I would like to do is back out of this. If I accidentally clicked on it, I could just click the close button in the top left-hand corner. And let's go into a service that's pretty relevant. So like all over color, for instance. Let's say I need to make some alterations to this service. So obviously, if we walk through the motions as if this was a service that we did not have prior to, you fill in the name of the service itself, such as all over color, the category of service. This can be very helpful for reporting purposes, so that you can report out on, coloring services versus, barber services and so on. And then also you're going to have an ID. So the ID is what makes this service unique, because you could have multiple services with the same name. However, you'd need to have a different ID for each service because they cannot overlap. You cannot have two of the same for reporting purposes. So once you filled in the name, the category, and the ID, if you would like, you can color code your appointment categories or services. So in this case, I selected that, this is going to be, for color services, perhaps, is going to be this green color here. Once I've done that, we're going to have, in this case, normally it's going to start out with no processing and finishing time. So this would be what you would normally see as just the duration of the service here. However, in this case, I have to include processing and finishing time. So it's going to take me 30 minutes to get them set up, and then perhaps they're going to take another 30 minutes, let's say, in processing time. So, maybe they're going to be under the dryer for that period of time. And then it's going to take me maybe another 30 minutes to finish them up, maybe 15. This is obviously dependent on how quickly or how you operate. Now, from there, we're going to have our price. So whatever we charge for the service, and if services have sales tax, in this case, where we're from, we don't have sales tax on services, so I could disable that. And then also down here is what we have is called resources. So in the event that maybe you have a room or a tanning bed or a hair a hair drying station, for instance, you could essentially build a resource out to book that out with the service if you needed to. In this case, it's not necessary, so we're going to scrape past the resource section. And then we have what's called employee exceptions down here at the bottom. So if we do flip that on, what employee exceptions are going to do is if we select one of our employees, such as David, maybe David charges a little bit more for this service. So normally this service is $50, but maybe David actually charges $60, and David actually perhaps instead, he does take 30 minutes setup, he does take 30 minutes processing, but his finishing time is only 15 minutes. So when somebody calls up to book this appointment with David, it is going to be a little bit more expensive automatically, and the timing is also going to be different. So in this case, if I save this, this is going to be different if I were to book it under John versus David. So now I have my service. So that's kind of the service section of the system here. In the event that you have, like top services or favorite services, one thing I didn't mention is there is a star over here on the right-hand side that you can most certainly star this as a favorite service for it to show up in a favorites list because maybe you offer a top 10 services or a most popular service list. And then we can also remove a service as well if it was created by accident. Now, I would like you to keep in mind that when you do make a service and you start utilizing it and checking people out in the system with that service, you will no longer be able to delete it because there is a trail behind that service, and you need to be able to report out, from a financial perspective of what has been done. So when you try and remove a service, if you no longer or retire that service, from there, what it will do is it will actually mark it as inactive, is what it would do in those cases. So it's still in your system, but it's not going to appear in your active list of services. So moving on from services, the next thing that we need to discuss is going to be products. So if I click on more again up here, we're going to go over to products. And now we have some products that are already in the system. Now, in the event, again, that you need to add new product, you click the plus sign in the bottom right-hand corner. And from here, you're just going to select the name of the product, the brand, the category. And I would like to dive a little bit deeper into one of the products that we already have on the shelf here. So in this case, we'll go this Miracle Leave-In. So just to give you better perspective, we have the name of the product, we have the brand of the product, the category. We also have, a SKU number, which you could actually scan the barcode of the product into the system and use it from a barcode scanning perspective as well. And that might be a better way for a lot of you to utilize that SKU. Otherwise, this is, again, just like the ID in the service section, it's what makes the product unique, because you could have two Miracle Leave-Ins, even though one's a 4 ounce and one's a 6 ounce. You don't have to specify it here, and it could just be that you're specifying it on the size. And as long as the SKU is different, it'll allow you to enter in that product. Now, in addition, we're going to have our pricing, the retail and the wholesale price of the product. And then if we offer, or have sales tax on products. Once we've moved forward, we're going to have our inventory count and also a supplier if you, wherever you're getting your products from, if you want to be tracking that. The last thing on here as well that I always like to mention is going to be the back bar. So if we do click the checkbox here for a back bar item, this is going to be products that you're using in-house, such as maybe shampoo or conditioner, over at the shampoo bowl. So if you were to have products that you're only using in-house, or even gel for that matter, at the end of a service, you can tag them as back bar, so that what you can do is when you actually go to, you can ring them out of your system. So at a $0 amount, so that they're coming directly out of your inventory. And also when you mark it as a back bar item here, what it is going to do is when you actually go to try and sell product, these items will not actually appear for sale. So you won't be able to accidentally sell somebody the wrong item, or an item that you're not selling at all. As you do see that the retail price has disappeared from the pricing section. If I uncheck this, you'll see that it repopulates here. Now, again, just like services, this product is no longer offered. So if people really love to try and clean up their inventory, as we all should, and if it does come down to it where you're no longer selling a product, or it's no longer offered by the supplier that you're going through, you could mark the product is no longer offered. And that's going to do the same thing that services are doing, where it's simply going to put it into a different category, just like the services were. So if we go back, we have our active and we have our inactive, so that you can keep track of what you're utilizing currently and what you currently have on the shelf versus what is no longer offered. And again, the reason that we cannot simply delete it from the system altogether is for financial purposes. At the end of the year reporting, we need to be able to, or you need to be able to, track everything that has been sold or wrung out of the system altogether. Now, once we have our employees, we have our schedules, we have our clients. Last thing that we do need is going to be our clients. So if we do click on clients here, the next thing that we are going to do is click on the plus sign here to add a new client. So obviously you see there's a general theme going on here to add in items. So if I do click the plus sign, we could go through the motions of adding a new customer into the system. Now, again, I am just going to click the X here, and we're going to go into somebody that exists in the system here. Let's go over to Jack, for instance. So once you've added in their details, it's going to look a little differently, and we're going to have what's called the customer overview. This screen is relatively new. This screen is actually awesome, because when you click on a customer and you're looking for their details at the end of their appointment, it's going to give you all their upcoming details, which is really cool, and anything that they've purchased recently, so that you could recommend products or services that they've gotten done in the past as well. Now, on the upcoming appointment side, everybody's always looking to know when their next appointment is, so it'll be directly right in front of you as well. So once you have the overview, going over the personal information, this is actually the same screen that we were just looking at from the adding of a new client. So from here, we have our first name, we have our last name. Those are the only two fields that are an absolute must, because everybody has to have a first and last name. You can categorize your clients if you'd like. Maybe you offer some sort of membership functionality, which the software is capable of doing. So you could have, a level associated with the client, such as bronze, silver, gold, and so on. Or maybe you have VIP clients as an example. So this is where that category very well may be handy for you. And then from there, we're going to have mobile phone number, which is going to be super important, because that's how they're going to get their text reminder for their appointment. And then also we do offer, text message marketing as well, if that is of interest to you. And we also have, their email address, which is going to be, how they could get an email reminder, as well as email marketing as well. So those are just some of the, the very important things to grab from the customer. Now, if you do get their birthday, you could also mark it out for birthday promotions. So the general theme here is the more detail that you get from the customer, the more marketing functionality, the better equipped you are to know your customer. From here, if you want to enter in an address, by all means, software would only be able to kind of give you more of a geographical sense for your customers, unless you wanted to utilize it to send them out mail yourself. Once we have their personal info, some of the additional information on here is going to be, their history. So anything from their overall visit history to upcoming appointments, to their previous services, previous products, anything that they bought, if they've canceled appointments, or any additional purchases, which would probably be things such as gift cards. In addition, we then have the notes section, which is also going to be applicable on their actual appointment, where you can kind of view their formula notes as well. And the last thing on the actual client's profile is going to be photos. So just like on the employee side, if you wanted to add a photo of the client, you could most certainly take one from a mobile device or a webcam if that was something that you wanted to do. You could even have kind of like a before and after, which would be super helpful for a lot of stylists and technicians as well, because they really like to kind of capture what the great work that they're doing. So once we have all of these things, now we kind of move forward and we move over to the appointment book. We essentially have all the tools. We've gone over all the tools that are going to make us successful from a day-to-day standpoint to go through the booking and the checkout flow. So now I'm going to dive over into the appointment book, and we're going to go through the flow that we would have to do to actually make an appointment here. Now, from the computer, if we just simply, click on, let's say that somebody calls up and says, hey, I'd really like to book an appointment with David for, 1 o'clock on the 25th. You just simply click on the time that they would like to book the appointment for. And then from here, we actually, it's going to automatically fill in the date and time that we selected. If you accidentally select the wrong day and time, you can most certainly change those. Which provider? Again, if it was not supposed to be David, you could change it right on the fly here. If it was John, you're going to see how it just bumps it right over to John's book instead. I'm going to jump over to David's in this case, and then which client. So this is where you go and you fill in the client's details. So you can type in the client's name here to fill in any information. So like, let's just click on Joe as the example, and then what service is Joe going to get done. And in this case, Joe's going to get a men's haircut, but like, let's say that like I don't remember, the name of the service, for instance. So if I type in hair, what you are going to see is it's going to populate all of the hair services that are offered in the system. So in this case, it's going to be a men's haircut. And obviously, the more detailed you become, the less services that are going to be populated in the system here. So if I click on men's haircut, you're going to see that it's kind of prompted the book automatically with the time. And then from here, if there's an appointment type, these are all changeable. Perhaps he's a new customer, perhaps he's a returning customer. Whatever the case is, you can most certainly change these so that you could report out on new requests versus existing clients as well. And then we would just simply click schedule, and that's going to book the appointment for Joe. So now that we have the appointment scheduled, the next step would be, actually going through the motions of, checking him in and checking him out. So to do so, if Joe, shows up for his appointment, what we can do is we can just click on the appointment, and there is actually a check-in right on the book here. So I could just check him directly into the system. Now, let's say that you accidentally checked Joe in by mistake, and you meant to, perhaps check Jack in, which is, an earlier appointment. What you could do is you could go back over to the appointment details. So actually, under the appointment details here, under the checked in, you can click cancel the check-in, and we can click yes. So this way, the appointment is no longer checked in, and then you could go check in the appropriate appointment. So if I just click save up here, from here, what we could do is now I could check him in again, or I could check Jack in because maybe I meant to check Jack in as the example. So if I check him in, and you're going to see that the color does change, you know, of the appointment for a checked in, and you do see the check mark and the time that they've checked in. Now, just as an example, you know, I would like to point out, let's say that Joe's running late, or Joe's not going to be able to make it, or, you know, we need to make some alterations to his appointment. Some of the cool things that you can do is you can simply drag it. If Joe calls up and says, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it, and you're like, yeah, that's fine. Sally can take him actually at, you know, 2 o'clock. And you could move it over to Sally's appointment book. One of the other really cool things that you can do with this as well is we have this new feature called Move Appointment. So actually, I could actually drag this appointment into this Move Appointment. And as you see, it kind of highlights it out, very different from the rest of the appointments. And you can actually move this to a completely different day. If Joe's like, yeah, I'm going to have to reschedule for, you know, next Tuesday or next Wednesday or whatever the case might be. So, you know, I could go bump out on the calendar over into April here, and we could just select the 8th as an example. And then I can simply click and just drag his appointment right over. So now his appointment's been moved to the time that I've specified on Wednesday. So you don't have to go in and change the appointment. You can simply kind of do it right on the fly, right on the appointment book screen. Now I am going to take his appointment back. We're just going to bump him back over to the 25th, maybe, you know, under Sally, if she's going to take him instead. So, you know, if you have, you know, some alterations that need to be made, the system is relatively flexible to do so. And then from here, the next thing is going to be, let's say that Joe actually does show up for his appointment. So, you know, we click on Joe. Again, we're going to check him in. And then from here, in this case, you know, now I click off, and, you know, Joe's been checked in. And then from here, I can actually just click on his appointment and I can go check out. Real quickly here, one thing that we could have done is on the appointment details that I wanted to address, my apologies here, is simply an alteration to the appointment. Okay, so, you know, maybe, you know, Joe only takes 40 minutes or 35 minutes. If you needed to change the time on the service, you could. If you needed to change the price here, you could. But these are things that you'll also be able to do on the checkout screen here. Okay, and then in addition, I know I showed you how to kind of quick move an appointment, but you can also move the appointment from the details section as well. So looking at the actual appointment details, you know, if the time was off, you know, you could most certainly make that adjustment here, or the day as well. So you can, of course, move things from here. Now, also, the other thing that you have is appointment notes. So this is specific to this appointment here, okay? So in the event that the appointment is, you know, he's running like 5 minutes late, you could throw that in the notes here so that when you go to click on it from your phone as the stylist, if the receptionist made an update, you'd be able to see that context here as well. Or anything special about his appointment, because maybe he's, you know, maybe he's having a rough day. Now, in addition to that, you know, circling back around, now that we've checked him in, you can check him directly out from the book, like I said, or we can go over to actions and we can go check out. So no, we won't save any changes that have been made. And then from here, circling back to the checkout screen, you know, if they're going to buy a gift card, you know, if you sell gift cards, you could add a gift card onto his total amount, along with an expiration date here as well. Now I'm going to cancel the gift card. You can also, you know, if there was a return coming on board, or they were going to buy, you know, something in addition to, you can add those items here. And we also have this previous product, which is awesome too. So like anything that they bought previously, if you click on previous product, you know, you could at least present those things at checkout to the customer as well. And last but not least, if they do have a package in the system, which is something that we haven't touched on at this time, is if you could also redeem a package in the system. So if you offer, you know, like a blowout package, for instance, you could of course redeem one of those blowouts here as well. Now, circling back over, we have our service. If there was going to be a discount, you could most certainly add one on here. And then from here, we would just simply go proceed to payments. So if I click on proceed to payment, now we're going through the motions of the checkout itself. So now we're on the step 2, which is outside of the client details. So now we're set in stone that we're going to charge them. From here, what we have is, so I click on credit here. What it's going to do is it's going to ask you for or prompt you from our integrated credit card processing. So this is actually a really cool functionality of the software. If you click on, the credit type, this is actually kind of circling here because I don't have that configured on this system here. But what it's going to do is it's going to automatically process the card on a terminal. So all the work is going to be done for you. So when you click, this will be not grayed out. You'll be able to click process card. And then from here on the actual terminal, it'll automatically, charge them the 33. It'll also prompt them for a tip, because that's definitely important. And then it'll automatically check them out of the system here and it'll close it out. So it'll be one fluent motion here. Now, in the event that, the machine, you don't have a machine and you're just using a chip reader, or, you're having some technical difficulties, you can, of course, enter credit card information in as well and process it this way with our integrated credit card processing. The integrated credit card processing is going to give you quite a bit of flexibility and also save you time during checkout. As you know, we're always super busy and you need to be able to check people out quickly, and you'll be able to actually check them out directly from your phone. We actually have like a mobile reader where you could just check them out, directly from your phone, and then also it'll again prompt for a tip and do the rest directly on your phone. So you don't have to necessarily have a terminal, but there's quite a few different options in which we're always happy to elaborate further on if you need more detail. Now I am going to circle back around, to proceed to payment one more time, and we're going to go through, the other way. So like, let's say that they're going to be paying with cash. So if they are going to be using cash, you can simply put in the amount. You can add the payment amount into the system here, and then it is going to trigger automatically over here as well. And then from here, we can also go add tips. And then you can actually select the tip amounts that you'd like to add for the employees as well. So let's say that we add $10 and I click add. What you're going to see here is it's going to add that amount on to the appointment. And this is something I always like to point out is, so they added the cash and we added the tip on after the fact. If you're not using the integrated credit card processing, you will have to actually make sure that you put that in the total here on the cash side. So the cash pay would be 10, in this case, we still owe $10 because we put the tip in after the fact. So I can then add the payment on, and then it's going to circle around and then confirm that in the system. Now, what you can also do, because when you're going through here, if you're not using it, we owe 40, I minimized that and we owe $43 still, is now the cash amount is going to prompt us for 43. And I could add the payment this way. And then we could close it out so that you don't have to go back around. I always like to make sure to, hit on that because some people forget to add the tip on the right-hand side first. Now, if you're going to be using our integrated credit card processing, this is something you don't even have to worry about whatsoever. So now from here, I could just click close ticket. And then from here, you can print a receipt if you're hooked up to a printer, which we can most certainly help you do if you need it. And then also we have email receipts so that you could just simply email the receipt to the customer. In this case, I'm just going to skip it. Of course, going to prompt for a rebooking of the appointment if you'd like to do so. Now, I'm actually going to click back over on the calendar, and it's going to take you back over to the appointment book. Now, some of the other things I really like to mention is some of the value that the integrated credit card processing does offer outside of a swift checkout flow is going to be, we offer to save credit cards on file. And that's also for the online booking section of the system as well. So if your customer goes to book an appointment online, And what we'll be doing here is going over the checkout flow, or the booking flow, and it actually can prompt them to put a credit card on file that way as well. So that this way, one, it's going to validate that it's a legitimate person that's booking an appointment, and also it's going to be conscientious of the stylist or your time, as well as if they don't show up to the appointment or they cancel outside of your policy, you would have the information necessary to be able to charge them, whatever that fee is that or policy that you like to enforce. From there, some of the other added value is, we talked about the client categories. If I go back over to the client section and we just click on David, for instance, on the personal info, we talked about the category. Maybe you have a bronze, silver, and a gold. In those cases, we do offer like a membership billing perspective as well. Some great examples of that is like a blowout membership. If you offer, blowouts, and it could just be like, they come in 2 or 3 times a month for a blowout, and you charge them a reoccurring fee every month. And this is a really great way to have some residual income, coming in or flowing into the business as well. And you can have you can of course have a membership for whatever is applicable to your business. Now, outside of the integrated credit card processing, a couple last tidbits that I really would love to point out for you guys are the reminder section. We talked about clients receiving appointment reminders along with employees receiving notifications. Those are definitely a few of the things that I just want to make sure that we highlight on here, because while you're getting started with the system, those can be pretty crucial to get set up. So actually, if you go under more and we go to options here, where we're going to go is email and texting and reminders and notifications here. And from here, this is actually where you can set up your appointment reminders. Now, I already have them turned on. So one step before this would have been for you to enter in your business information, such as the business name, the business phone number, and the email address, and your business address, so that we could capture all those things from a reminder and a marketing side as well for your customers. Now, the appointment reminders, so I have both email and text message turned on. I can most certainly edit the email message and the text message if I so choose, and then when to send reminders out. So essentially right now it's going to go out 1 day before the appointment, and then they can also confirm their appointment via text message as well. Okay, so and what will happen is actually on the appointment book, you're going to see a little reminder bell show up in the bottom right-hand corner of the actual appointment. If we jump back over, just to show you, so there'll be a little bell that'll show up in the bottom right-hand corner. And then when they actually confirm that appointment, there's going to be a check mark that goes through that bell, so that you know that they confirmed. So it's a really great way to make sure that you don't have to pick up the phone and constantly call. So I'm going to go back to options real quickly, because there's just a couple more added value items in there under the notifications. Is we do have an appointment scheduled. So if you'd like the customer or the employee to receive an email and or a text message when the appointment's been scheduled, changed, or canceled, you can most certainly turn those things on. So because sometimes we run into issues where clients are like, I didn't actually cancel my appointment. Well, this is a great way to confirm that as well, and also make sure that they get confirmation that the appointment was canceled. Same with scheduling. Sometimes things fall through the cracks and they miss it. This is a great way to make sure that they don't miss that as well. Now, outside of that, the very last thing that I always make sure to show is actually on reports. So if we click on reports here, we of course need to know how things are going from the business's perspective here. So in this case, we have sales totals and sales tax by range of days. So right now we're in the favorites. These reports are the most popular reports. However, as you can see, we do have quite a few reports in the system to be able to help you out. And then from here, we have what's called the sales totals and sales tax by range of days. This is going to be what you primarily use probably the most. And you can run this as the owner for yourself, And then there is one that's specific to just the employee who is logged into the account, as you can set up permissions in the system so that they only have access to what they need. Now, as far as the total sales and total tax goes, you can select any day range. You could do 1 day, you could do a week, you could do a month. So in this case, I'm just going to say this week. And then we can go all employees and booth renters, or we can always exclude people from here as well, or do individual, okay? Now I'm gonna click run report. We're just gonna do everybody. So just so you see, it's going to kind of break everything out for you from payment side, so you have what was ran on an American Express, what was done in cash. And then on the summary side, it's just gonna give you like an overall totals in here. And then we're gonna have taxes. And then we have our employees and booth renters. So, this is only going to appear for anyone that has actually had anything rung out during that period of time. So it's not trying to fill up space that you don't need to see. So, Sally's the only thing that's had anything registered. And then we can, of course, always click the details section here to get a larger, more detailed breakout of everything that she's done for that range of days, or that series, I should say, that you've selected. So if you have any questions, by all means, and then if you need any help, feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to take care of you guys in any way that we can. So Pam did just ask, how to view online requests, so managing the online requests. So that's a great question, Pam. So actually up here we have our globe for requests. And so how this does work is when somebody actually books an appointment online, or requests an appointment online, I should say, is what you'll be able to do is the request will actually show up here, and there'll be a notification here as well. And if you're using this from a tablet or a phone, you will most definitely be seeing that as well as a pop-up or a notification in the application itself. And what you can do is you can click on the request section, and then it's actually going to come up with whatever their appointment request was, so that you can then accept or reject that request in the system, altogether. Now, if you're not actually looking at the request section here, and you're on the appointment book, and you actually happen to come across an appointment or a request on the book before you actually get to it in the request section, you can actually click on it directly from the appointment book as well. It'll look very similar to this time block does here, where it's, it stands out in relation to the rest of the appointment. So it'll be more of like a ghosted appointment that you'll click on, and then you'll be able to kind of essentially accept or reject that. Now, if you need to reject it because it doesn't work, of course, you'll have the customer details because it requires them to enter in their information upon booking the appointment. So that you can then, call and rebook the appointment. So Danielle, you asked how to edit standing appointments. So if something needs to be made to the actual appointment, for instance, let's say Samantha, and you need to make either a complete change to the appointment altogether and change all the services that are being done, or add services, for example, we can actually click on the appointment. We can go over to appointment details, and then from here, one, you can of course change the time of the appointment, but two, you could also, like, let's say that they're not getting all over color, or they need to add services on. So one, you can add items here. Now, if you accidentally selected all over color and didn't mean to, we could drop that off, and then we could then select what they're going to get. Maybe it's a color and a cut. So in this case, if I select the color and the cut, then it's going to pull in that service instead of. And then also, you can add on other services. Maybe they're going to get that, and maybe you're a full service salon, and they're also going to get, their nails done. So like you could totally do that as well, and you can totally add additional appointments, and it's just going to stack on to their existing appointment base. So now you see how we've completely changed what Samantha was getting from an all over color to a color and a cut, and she's going to get, a manicure. The last question I see here is, can we retrieve deleted clients? No, once you have deleted clients, Pam, you will not be able to go back and retrieve those customers. They're deleted from the system. The software is cloud-based, so if something were to happen, we're not exactly storing your database in the sense of if you delete one or two things, but everything is on the cloud altogether. So we are storing, your information, so you won't lose anything that you've entered into the system. However, if you do delete something out, that is a permanent delete. I also see, how to cancel a standing appointment as well. So that's one more great question here. So on the appointment itself, you can actually click on it, and there actually is a cancel appointment directly on it. The one thing that you cannot do to keep in mind too is, so like we have Jack over here, he's already checked in. You can't cancel a checked in appointment, okay? So keep that in mind. So if you accidentally check him in and you didn't mean to, and you're like, I need to cancel this, you gotta go over to the appointment details, and like we touched on earlier, you gotta cancel the check-in. So if I were to cancel this check-in for Jack, and then under actions, I could also click cancel appointment from here. And I could even, so right now it's going to be a cancellation based on what I've selected, or I can tag mark as no show and then put a reason, didn't show up. Address the difference between a cancellation and a no show, because those might have two different effects on you or your policy. So then it'll also disappear from the book. I don't see any more questions coming in here. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out to our support team here. We are more than happy to assist you in any way that we can. Always, the phone number, in case you do need it, it's 800-604-2040. Again, if you need anything, my name is Mike. I hope you guys got some good information from this, and if you need anything, by all means, feel free to reach out. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.